Goal here is to introduce you to the Chinese written language. Around 100 characters, 100 symbols of the language you'll learn in this particular lecture. And my goal is to um, cover that in around um, an hour or two. 2 hours is a good estimate. This will probably take a semester's effort if you're doing this at a university. Um, these are like the 100 most frequently occurring characters. So it might be like around 50 to 70% of characters that you'll encounter. So it'll give you a level of familiarity with the language, with the script at least. Or Sanskrit or German or any language, alphabet forms indicate sounds. In English, a particular alphabet can have different pronunciations. C can be pronounced like C or K. CAT is cat, but there is an overall map from alphabet to sound. So, and then there are a limited set of alphabets, 26 alphabets, through which sounds may be expressed. The sound forms of the words are expressed. That is what we can call a phonetic script, a kind of a phonetic. Sanskrit is purely phonetic. If there is no such thing as an alphabet making a sound C and K at the same time. There's just one single sound for an alphabet. Chinese is different in this aspect, in the sense that every single word is a symbol. So if you have 80,000 words in the dictionary, there are 80,000 different symbols. In English, you can say there are 26 symbols. But among these 80,000 or maybe even 100,000 symbols that are there in ancient Chinese dictionaries and modern Chinese dictionaries, around 3,000 are in popular usage. So if you know around 3,000, you can use the language. But this might seem daunting. How do you memorize 80,000 different symbols? A thing is that the Chinese symbols can be broken down into a kind of a set of atomic parts. They call them radicals. Ancient Chinese dictionaries have called them radicals. These symbols form a view into what they seek to express. That is, the symbol and its meaning are not two different things. In the diagram on the right, you see the Chinese character Sai, which in pronunciation like CAI, Sai, which indicates uh, a sense of potential, talent, ability, the ability to break through, and so on. It has the notion of an axis breaking through a potential space. I won't get into the deeper symbolism because the goal here is to help you gain an overall understanding of the script. And so we'll keep the focus. Just as the visual form of the character says its meaning, the sound form of the character is symbolic in the sense that the sound in itself, in a pure sense, carries a hue of its meaning, is its meaning. You could say a hue of its meaning, or you could say is what it is, depending on to what depth you want to view it as a symbol. And an example is the sound un, in indicating a sense of tranquility. peace. If you say the sound an and vibe with it, there's a sense of tranquility, peace, and all that. Another character by the sound ding. Ding indicates, among other things, the notion of a meditative stillness. If you say the sound ding and see what happens to your awareness. Chinese sounds have 4 different tones. Um, we'll ignore that for now. Four different tones and a fifth tone or a 0th tone. These atomic units in visual symbols combine together to form more complex symbols. The symbol for psi, which indicates ability, breakthrough, combines with a symbol which is said to indicate land to form Xi. The meaning of Xi is similar to at in English. The place where something is happening, the place where activity is happening. The notion of place is indicated by earth, and the notion of activity is indicated by the breakthrough symbol. So the place where activity is happening, and thus the meanings at, in, on, and so forth. I'm just giving an example early on. We'll see things in greater depth soon. As for the sounds in Chinese, there are a limited set of sounds. Like total number of sounds would be around 300 or 400. If you ignore the tones, I guess. That means a particular sound, say sh, can have the meaning yes, sh can have the meaning time, and so forth. A 20 or 40 or even 100 different meanings can exist. There's an entire poem in Chinese made of just one sound. Sh, can also mean a master, and so a sh can also mean a poet. We use this particular video lecture. You can pause at the screen for a character, meditate on it for 20 or 40 seconds just to gain a level of familiarity with it, or you can just move along with the lecture if you tend to absorb information faster. I'll skip these few pages. Study is Ri, sun, sun, sun. The word is used to indicate the sun, day, and so forth. You see 3 columns on the right. The topmost column are the most ancient forms found on what are called oracle bones. They used tortoise shells and animal bones for the purpose of for the work of oracles to making prophecies from what patterns that appear. Apparently, they would put it on fire, study the cracks that formed, and the prophecy would be recorded on the shells themselves. So the writing were found on those ancient sources, those animal bones, tortoise shells, and so on. Those are supposedly the oldest. Then you have writing found on bronze vessels and so forth. That is called the bronze script. Writings from that era you see in the center middle portion in a bronze colored square. And the first are called oracle bone script. The second set is bronze script, and the final set are called seal script. That was around the time or just before writing by brush began to get popular. When writing by brush became popular, these long linear strokes became a characteristic. So you see the form of Ri has evolved from a dot inside a circle to the present day form, which you see is like a rectangle with a line in the middle. So it indicates an active energy source represented by a dot manifesting in space. You can think of it that way. It's just an indication. In the sense, it's just a way of explaining the symbol. There are far deeper senses to it. And this holds for everything that I'll be saying from now forth. I'm just putting forth an idea so that the symbol stays in your mind. This is the symbol for the number 1. Like 1, 2, 3, you have the number 1. This also indicates the primordial origin, that which is beyond the appeared world. Symbol 1 is pronounced Yi. That's in the previous line. You needn't bother about the pronunciation as of now. Just gain a level of familiarity with the symbols, just so that you're no longer alien to this language or these symbol set. This is called, this is the number 2. Pronunciation is Obviously, this indicates number 2 because there are 2 lines. Just as a single line represented 1, 2 lines represent 2. The Shuo, an ancient Chinese dictionary, says it represents Earth, the number of Earth. And these symbols can, Shuo says, Shuo Wen says, Di Jushu, number of Earth. But that symbolic phrase in Shuo Wen can be interpreted as having far profounder senses in a purely symbolic manner. This is Sun, S-A-N. The tone is high, flat, Sun. I won't be bothering about the tones. And don't bother about the pronunciation too much again. Just gain an idea of what this represents as a symbol. There are 3 lines, so it represents the number 3. The ancient Chinese dictionary says Tian Di Ren Jishu, meaning heaven, earth, man's number. The number of heaven, earth, and man, 3. Here you have the symbol of white, Bai. This is thought by today's etymologists to represent a cloth. If you see my pointer, here I have written white, plain, clear. The ancient form was the picture of a silkworm cocoon, clear, plain, and white in color. The character for silk fabric, Bo, was once written as shown here. With Jin, what you see below as hanging down, you can think of as the picture of a cloth. Underneath, the symbol for white, Bai, a silkworm cocoon. In today's writing, Bai is abstracted to this particular form that you see here. So again, this was my first book on Chinese characters, 2010. As my research evolved, I began to view these things as pure symbols, including the Chinese dictionary Shuo. In my early book, I was influenced by the ways of thinking of today's academia, even though I go far beyond academia in explaining these symbols. The academia does not think of these as symbols even. They have all kinds of theories of random evolution and so forth. These can represent the alchemical energy in that sense, white, pure, clear. The white. So when I read the Shuowen sense now, it evokes that particular sense as well. So the white drops of energy. If you want to memorize the present day form, you just saw the form of the sun, right, as a rectangle with a line in between. Think of a white ray of light as emerging from the sun. This is the symbol of a spoon, sha. So you have those ancient forms which appear in the form of a spoon with something inside. Spoon, ladle, sha. Imagine how that particular form would have evolved over time, starting with what you see on the top left and evolving to what you see at the bottom right to finally what you see on the, sorry, starting with what you see on top right in the yellow box, coming down top right bottom, and then the prominently shown image on the center towards left. Imagine, visualize it somehow evolving into this form. Visualize how this form indicates a spoon with something inside it. And because it is written with strokes of the brush, it has to look like a kind of abstracted form of a spoon with something inside. When you combine the symbol of white with that of a spoon with something inside, it becomes the word the. It is like the sound apostrophe S in English. If you want to say the books, show the book apostrophe S, indicating belonging. So you're making plain, indicated by the symbol on the left, what is inside the spoon, what is held. Think of this as uh, making plain what is inside the spoon. Uh, in some forms, do you see the form in the box on the right end of the screen? You have the symbol for the sun along with the symbol of a spoon with something inside to shine light on what is inside, indicating the sense of apostrophe S. When you're saying the book's contents, you're shining light on the contents of the book. So the book is like the spoon, and its contents becoming manifest is like the by symbol, white light, clarity. This is a symbol saying stop, halt, to detain, and so on. This is thought of to be a symbol of the feet. When you have the symbol of a feet, there is a notion of to stand, to stop, and thus the meaning here. Think of how the symbol would have evolved from the image of a feet to what you see here. Here you have the symbol for the word Zheng. Zheng means correct, precise, what is right, and so on. So the notion emerges from a space above indicating heaven, or the line 1, which I said indicates that which is beyond the universe, that which is divine, and so on. And stand, and the feet in the sense to stand rectified by that which is above. Here you have a symbol for the dawn, Za. Don't worry about the pronunciation at this stage. Just focus on the symbol. Think of it as a symbol of the sun breaking through at dawn. You see the somewhat more pictographic form on the right. You have the ground, a vertical line, and the sun breaking through. This is the word sure. It is like the English yes. You could say it for sure, like the sound sure occurs in short, right, true, and so on. Also the sense of is, to be. So symbolically, if you see on the right, there is the rising sun and the feet standing in front. So a sense of certainty, a sense of truth is the word for bu, which means no, 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 not there, and so on. The ancient Chinese dictionary, if you read it in the surface sense, speaks of it as a bird flying away and not coming down. So, a notion which has no standing ground, thus no, not, and so forth. I have the picture of a child. So, the meaning is also child, person. Confucius, it can also mean individual. Confucius' name was originally written Kongzi. So here is Z. In ancient form, it is clearly the picture of a child. You have the hands becoming the vertical line, the head becoming the angular form, and the torso becoming a vertical line. Z, a person, a child, offspring, son, and so on. This is sound used as a grammatical particle which indicates a completion of a situation. If you think of the form of a newborn, the hands are missing here because perhaps in a very infantile state in wrapped cloth. Um, it has a notion of an idea brought into being. So uh, the meanings, uh, the grammatical sense of indicating a completed situation, and so forth. Man, clearly the picture of a man. You see the most ancient forms above. Uh, Here the ancient dictionary Shuowen says embodies the nature of heaven and earth is most precious. In the bronze script form, sometimes you see a line above indicating the primordial unity. The primordial, not as everything is one thing, that which is beyond appeared phenomenon is called the primordial one. Sometimes there are two lines. Two lines have been used to indicate that which is above, the notion of above, and so forth. We'll see that later. Symbol for a hand, and it can also signify when it occurs as a symbol in other characters, occurs as a symbol as a part of other characters. It can also indicate action because hand is associated with action. Think of what you see on the right as an abstracted form of a hand or a palm. There are deeper symbolic senses, but as I've said earlier, we are skipping that. Ga, the sound indicates a sharp instrument, a weapon. It is thought to be the symbol of a kind of weapon used in ancient China. You can see abstract drawings of the same on the right. Character, you see the symbol of a hand together with the symbol of the weapon. So a hand holding a weapon is emphasizing the self, I, me, and so on. The sense of assertion. You could imagine it that way. Asserting the self, I. This particular symbol mm, indicates a line breaking through a space. An ancient dictionary says, the Shuowen says it's like a sprout breaking through the earth. So just as a sprout and a seed that is sprouting indicates potential, talent, faculty, gift, and it indicates a situation um, where which forms a foundation for something else too. So you have the sense only that the predominant senses include talent, potential, faculty, gift, only then, and so on. This is the symbol of earth. Two, uh, ancient form on the right clearly indicates a mound of clay or earth. So potter's clay, earth, you could visualize it as any of that. And when it was abstracted out into a set of lines made by the brush, it became something like what you see on the left, to the form of the symbol today. Think of it that way. Just a way to memorize it. You have Psi, a symbol of breaking through, sprouting, potential, activity, talent. Together with the symbol for earth, you have this word for at, like English 80. The phenomenon is happening at a place. That kind of at in on be indicating an action in progress and so forth. So the sense is very clear, a place of activity, place indicated by the symbol for earth, and activity indicated by the form that indicates a breakthrough. This is said to be the form of a hand in both ancient Chinese literature and by the modern academia. But what it actually is, you can refer some of my later books to find out. But here we'll stick to what the usual ancient texts and the modern academia says. The image of a hand you see on the right, and it got evolved when the brush-based form of writing was introduced to what you see on the left, yo. Uh, it in usage does mean things like again, both, furthermore, in addition, on the other hand, and so forth. All these meanings, all these words that I just said, again, both and furthermore, indicate things that are in hand. Also, regarding the discussion at hand. So the sense, again, both, furthermore, in addition, on the other hand, and so forth. Means meat, flesh, and so on. Obviously, the image of a strip of flesh, meat, flesh, muscle, picture of a strip of meat, raw. See the image on the right and see what it has become in the brush-based form of writing on left. Here you have the symbol of a hand together with the symbol of a piece of flesh, meat, strip of meat, and the meaning is to have. That is, when you're holding a piece of meat in hand, you have that piece of flesh or meat, a strip of meat in hand. So the meaning have, there is. The ancient Chinese dictionary Shuo Wen gives the meaning of this particular symbol as yo, means bu yi yo, which is the straight opposite of the meaning of the word yo. Bu indicates negation. So it's a virtual mystery how to read it for the academia. I have challenged my Chinese friends, some of the world's best experts on Chinese, to read that particular phrase from the Shu Wen and take the help of anything they want, any ancient Chinese dictionary or modern resource or any library or any friend. Nobody could read it coherently. So there's a hidden layer of symbolism in um, the ancient Chinese language, in the ancient Chinese dictionaries, which are not understood by today's people and today's academy. I have discussed that in greater depth in some of the other books that I have written. May be visualized as the image of a vessel, a container, a clay vessel, and so forth. You see the ancient forms on the right. The present day form is here. This was in ancient days used to indicate the end of a sentence. In today's Chinese, it has the meaning also and as well in that sense. Think of it as a container to put ideas together, so that grammatical sense. and to as well, either and so forth. English we have he, she, it based on the gender or the absence of gender, he, she, and it. Um, Gender or neutral. Um, so in Chinese, there is uh, in classical Chinese there was just one character to represent the third person. That is the what you see here. On the left side, what you see is a shortened form for the image of a person. Think of it as a person standing upright. It is a shortened form of the image of a person, Ren, that we just saw a few slides ago. And on the right side is the image for a vessel, the idea of to include the person or the thing in the discussion. Things can be attributed, can be anthropomorphized, made to be like a human. So the notion of the uh, symbol of a person occurring in a symbol that refers to a thing, it can be thought of as a kind of anthropomorphization. Here's the symbol of a mouth, ko. It can symbolize a mouth, a gate, an entrance. Symbolically, it indicates what the word's meaning is: a gate, a mouth, an entrance, and so forth. A pictorial representation. A particular word means to offend, attack, invade, and so on. It can also indicate the meanings a trunk, stem, and so on. When they would break down walls of a fort or the door of a fort, they needed to use a battering ram. If you've seen it in the movies and all. So this could well have been the image of a battering ram. You see the image at the bottom right, like the horns of a ram, and the trunk also seen. So the meanings were offend, interfere, attack, invade, and it also had the meaning trunk and so on. The pronunciation were gun, G-A-N. These slides do not uh, represent the pronunciation accurately because the alphabets got overlapped when I converted it to PDF from, sorry, when I converted it to PowerPoint from PDF. This is the word that indicates shang. In ancient forms, you see two lines, and the line above was shorter. It has like the sense of energy rising upwards, like perhaps a little bit like a tapering pyramid, or energy subliming upwards, flowing upwards. And gradually the form got altered to what you see here on the left. You have a vertical line, and then a vertical line indicating rise, standing on a horizontal line, and another level of the rise perhaps is indicated by yet another shorter horizontal line. Think of it as having evolved from the ancient form that had two lines, but in this case, the upper line has been slightly shifted to the right and the vertical line has been added because the notion of ascending, rising has to do with the vertical axis. The meanings of this symbol include above, over, top, up, above, like that. Previous in the sense what occurred higher in the course of time. If you think of time as a river flowing down from a mountain, the previous incident occurred higher in the time stream. Just a way of memorizing the meaning. You have the symbol for acrid, bitter, suffering, like that, which shows those two lines indicating above. See the ancient forms on the right. You see two lines indicating that which is above, heavens or the primordial ordering of things above. And you have a person standing upside down, Just think of the form that way. So the person is not aligned with the flow of things. So in a state of suffering. You have the word form mouth and the word we just saw now, which indicates a sense of suffering, in fact, together forming the word, the symbol for the word yan. Why that symbol might have been chosen could be because of the ancient Chinese philosophy of Wu Wei, where the Tao itself becomes the intent of action and not the individual intent. Wu Wei means non-action, non-intent. It is not a sense of not doing any action, but one is profoundly aligned with the Tao, the primordial underlying of the universe. So anyway, it is easier to memorize the modern form. You have the mouth and something emerging from the mouth as words. Think of it as words, language, speech. Indicates movement, travel, functioning, something that is acceptable. It goes well, we'll say acceptable. So also the prominent meanings include to go, travel, acceptable, functioning, movement, and so on. On the right, you see the ancient form. It were the image of crossroads, four crossroads meeting at a point, a place of flow of movement. Add the image of a feet to the image of crossroads. See the image on the top right. You have what you see here. It's a symbol indicating movement, feet along with crossroads, movement. It does not occur on its own in today's Chinese, but as part of other symbols, as an aspect of other characters. The symbol for yan, word, along with the symbol for movement, the path, which is abstracted as what you see here, a curve, together form the word, this here, what you encounter on the path, something that is met on a path. When you're moving on the path, suddenly a perception arises in the form of a word, an inner intent. So you say this. It's obvious. It means a center, a target, the middle of, interior of, the core, the center part, and so on. It is a circle with an axis traveling through the center of it. The meaning should be obvious. A center, a core. The axial aspect is indicated by the vertical line, and the space whose center is referred to is indicated by a circle. In modern writing, it has become like a rectangle with a vertical line. You can think of this symbol, the great, big, vast, as a man standing with arms extended to say immense, great, and so forth. So the Shuowen says, heaven is immense, the earth is also immense, and therefore man is also immense, Ranyi Da. It has to do with ancient Chinese philosophy. Symbolically, it can refer to uh, a different idea as well. I touch upon it in other books that are written. Think of this for now as a man standing with arms extended to say, it's immense, big, great, vast. So this word is lai, and the form of the symbol is that of a plant, a wheat plant growing, and you see the awn's picture of an awned wheat plant. So the grains were thought to have been gifted by the heavens, like they sent Anna song, like a gift from above. It was easy to tell. The meaning of the previous glyph is come, arrive, to crop up, and so on. Here you have who. It means perhaps, probably, maybe, either, or. It shows a space that is guarded. The sense of guarding has an inherent sense of instability to it as well. So a guarded space, the options weighed. You need to be on guard. You need to look out for the different possibilities that might arise. What phenomenon might arise, what attacks might appear. So again, you see the weapon, you see a mouth or a space, and you see a particular stroke indicating a line or a boundary or whatever, just as a way of remembering it. Who means perhaps, probably, maybe, either, or. You formed an opinion and you're guarding it. The opinion emerges through the mouth, and you're holding a staff to indicate, I assert this as among the different opinions. Think of that as another way of remembering this glyph. This particular glyph is different from the glyph for the mouth go. If you look at the mouth glyph, it has lines going upward on either side. This is like an enclosure on a single circle bounding something, like an enclosure. And that's the meaning of this word. To surround, to enclose an enclosure, the sense of an enclosure. Ignore the description given here. So, here you have an enclosure around the previous glyph, another enclosure around it. The ancient form of the inner glyph also suggests the guarding of an enclosure, perhaps, a set of opinions, that which is enclosed. I'm just speaking of this as a way of embedding it in memory. The enclosure around the or glyph suggests an additional reinforcement, a sense of sense. This go has to do with not obstinate firm, it has to do with country, nation, a guarded place. Let me just write that down. Pen. I'll go for black. N-A-T-I-O. Yeah. This explanation is for a different character. Nation. Or a country, like the place. The glyph in the previous slide, Go, is also used for Zhongguo, Central Kingdom, the way China referred to itself in an era. The notion of where oneness being the Middle Kingdom, Central Kingdom, happens across traditions. Even for the imaginary Hobbit Kingdom, the Middle Kingdom was there. Not in China, where they were. Then. So in Chinese cosmology arises the notion of a 10-directional universe. So you see ancient forms depicting an artifact in spin and an axis. Later forms became abstracted to that of a cross, indicating all directions, all 4 directions in 2D, by extension all directions in the universe, which were in Chinese cosmology 10. Here you have a word which says ancient, old, well established, and so forth. The usual sense is ancient. You have the glyph for mouth and the glyph for 10, well established in all 10 directions. Another sense is spoken by 10 different people, so different, so well-established traditions, things of the sort. That's just a mnemonic, not the interpretation of the symbol itself. Another source says passed down through 10 generations, so ancient. Shuowen just says it's from Shi, the symbol of 10, and Ko, the symbol of month. Again, Shuowen seems to quote a source saying Shi, Shiko, Shi, Ko, Suo Chuan Shi, Qian Yan, indicating that which has been previously spoken or brought forth from the previous, or perhaps from the primordial, whichever sense one wants to read it in, from the before, ancient, old. The mouth can have a sense of the primordial word as it appears in different traditions, both Eastern and Western. I'm not sure if the Chinese have a notion of that, but Indians do have a notion of a primordial sound, so does the West. You have the symbol for ancient inside, and then you put an enclosure around it. It becomes obstinate, firm, something like a well-established opinion or well-established idea passed down through the ages and so forth. You can derive the sense of obstinate, firm from this symbol by interpreting it as the gu, ancient, inside, and the enclosure added outside. Kind of then, if it is that way, if it is already established from ancient days and you add an enclosure around it, it's kind of obstinate, not subject to change, firm, and so forth. These symbols, these two things, are interpreted as the twigs of a bamboo plant. It is possible to have deeper interpretations to it. Things made of bamboo to count and so forth are ideas that you can associate with this. Twigs might have been used for the purpose of counting. Later, abacus would have been made of bamboo. You have G as a measure word here. This is just the symbol that we saw 2 slides ago. On the left is the symbol for an individual or a person added. So a person is perceiving units of things. This is a kind of a measure word. A measure word is like we might say a cup of coffee, a bottle of water. So in Chinese, usually a measure word needs to be added before when indicating a quantity of something. Even in English you can say one person, but in Chinese one is E and person is Ren. In the middle you add eager Ren. Another form of G I have shown here down below, where I draw a line. It's the same thing, but above these 2 twigs are added. A short form of those 2 twigs is what you see there above. You'll get familiar with it afterwards when you see more characters, but just keep this in mind. These are like twigs counting. You see two twigs on top of what could be used as a symbol for a unit. This symbol. Here, the symbol on the right could indicate a unit, and on the left, an individual perceiving the unit. So from the word form, the symbol Ren, when it occurs as parts of other characters, often gets shortened or abstracted, simplified, or whatever you want to say it is, to this form you see on the left. This word has the meaning to, until, to the point of, to arrive, reach up to, extremely, and so on. It is thought of as the image of a bird flying down to its target, just about to reach its target, reaching to its target. If you see the last symbol in the second box, it's just about to reach its target at the extreme of its flight. So these meanings, do until to the point of reach up to extremely. These ancient forms somehow became what you see here. Perhaps it underwent a flip. Dao, this is the word for a sword, a particular kind of Chinese sword. It's a picture of a sword or a knife. The symbol can occur as part of other characters. It takes a shortened form that you see here, a simplified form that you see here. When it occurs as part of other symbols, it can occur in this form. And when part of other symbols, it can convey different meanings, including a sense of precision, a sense of precise evolution, and so forth. While the glyph that we explored two slides ago, has a notion of a sense of reaching. Dao has more a sense of precision, having touched, and so forth. Again, it's a sense of reaching to, but there's a greater sense of precision, also a sense of having touched the target. So you have the sword glyph added on the right. You see the ancient forms of the sword glyph added to the geoglyph here on the right among these symbols. While in the modern form, the sword appears as two lines. Think of those two lines as depicting a sword, an ancient Chinese sword. It adds a sense of precision, accuracy, a metallic feel to the bird flying to its target glyph. The sound becomes Da. This is the symbol for the number 8. 8 is a number that's highly divisible. 8 becomes 4, 4 becomes 2, and 2 becomes 1. So this can be thought of as depicting a sense of divisibility. It might have to do with the profounder sense of the number 8 in Chinese cosmology, in their understanding of the world. All the even numbers 2, 4, 6 and 8, and the Chinese symbols for that have a degree of symmetry. So this is the word for doi, joyous words exchanged and so forth. Here the symbol ba is said to symbolize the life energy coming out as one expresses oneself, say through joyous action or words. It is here in this context, it is more about joyous words perhaps. Below, if you see the ancient forms, it were the symbol of a man. In the present day form, it became just two legs. Then the mouth is prominently shown, and then the expression of breath, joyousness, energy is shown with the symbol ba. The Chinese have these mystical symbols called the trigrams, baguas. Among the baguas, this symbol refers to this particular bagu, two solid lines and above a broken line. And it is associated with what is joyous, with lake, etc. Combine what we just saw with the glyph for words, a mouth expressing something. You have speech, show, something that is said, speech, talk, say, the action of expressing words, exchanging ideas, is what I write here. This is the word for a gate, door opening, men. Some of the ancient forms clearly show a pictographic or ideographic representation of a gate, while there is another idea to it, a more anthropic idea, which you can find from another book I wrote, the one Neuroanatomy and the origins of Chinese. Think of this for now as the image of a gate, an ancient Chinese gate. This is a form used to indicate plural for pronouns and human nouns. So think of people interacting at a gate. There is more than one person. An idea of interaction. More than one individual being present. Men. There being a door being a space of interacting with the world. You can also think of as the door having two leaves, so a sense of interaction. Just to keep the form in memory. This is Xiang, the picture of an elephant. The meaning is appearance, form, shape, elephant itself. Elephant has a very conspicuous form. If there are a lot of animals in a room, you'd see the elephant in the room first. So form, appearance, shape. There are other deeper ideas to it, but that would be out of the topic of what we are discussing here. Here you may think of this as a hand and an elephant. The hand is guiding an elephant, guiding a form. Thus the sense of to guide, govern, stand for, support, on account of, and so on. So you think of it as guiding phenomenon, thus the sense of action. The previous glyph has a very different interpretation when you get into the deeper sense of the symbol. But again, we are attempting to cover all these slides in. We were attempting to cover it in 2 hours, but this will probably go to 3 hours or so. On average, it's been like 1 minute per slide. Her grain. Again, the picture of a plant with an honor grain, a pendant of grains shown on top. If you've seen a paddy plant, a rice plant, you'll see what this looks like. Grains and the act of consumption are in harmony. So mouth together with grains bring forth the idea of harmony. Grains might have been associated with plenty, by extension harmony. If it's really good tasty food, there's a sense of harmony to it. So think of a rice plant along with mouth together symbolizing the word her, harmony. The sound harmony occurs, the sound her is kind of somewhere there in harmony. The previous symbol her, harmony, is also used in the language to say and, together with, and so on. Things that harmoniously go together, like mouth and grains. That is food and the idea of consumption, eating. Here you have row. Think of it as an image of roots entering the ground. The meaning is to enter. So here you have this particular glyph. It is used as a full stop kind of sound, equivalent to there, now, that is done. You won't encounter this in modern writing a lot, I guess. But just remember this glyph. The Shuowen says, ancient dictionary says, it is from the row enter symbol, a vertical line, and the bar symbol. Bar is like the energy, chi energy, evolving outward or splitting itself. You have the sense of rooting and the axis. So it's like an exclamation made outward, or exclamation indicating a phenomenon that is indicated by a vertical line, the notion of entry and bar. This is a formal word for you, thou, like the Latin thou. Perhaps the image of somebody wearing kind of resplendent clothes, therefore elegant, fine, majestic. This is the form of the word me, you, just as the same as the English word you in meaning. It has on the left the image of a person, and on the right the form that we just discussed 2 slides ago. Here is a glyph for the word earth, place, land, ground, and so on. So the glyph for earth indicated by a mount, which indicates a mount of earth, and the image of a vessel is on the right. So earth is like a vessel which takes the seeds and evolves the seed out and so forth. So these two ideas together bring forth the idea of a vessel, of earth as a vessel, a place, a ground where seeds sprout. So the meaning of it is earth, land, field. Even I think earth as a whole globe, in the sense the planet earth. Chu means to emerge, emit, etc. You could visualize this for now as a feet stepping out of an enclosure. See the glyphs on the top right. You see a rectangular enclosure and a feet form stepping outside of it. Like I have been saying all along, there is a more accurate interpretation to this. You can find it in my other books, and I won't repeat this again. That's implied. What we are dealing with here is a level of apparent symbolism that would enable you to familiarize yourself with these symbols in an easy way. Here you have the pictogram of a head on the right. It gradually altered its shape to something that you see in the middle, a head-like form, markers indicative of hair on top. Then it again altered its form to what you see on the third box from the top, that is bottom right of the screen. And from there it became this form that you see prominently on the middle left. Show head. Head by extension has the meaning of a chief, a leader. Just as in the English usage, one might say the head of an office. You have the glyph for movement, a crossroad. When that occurs as part of a particle, a part of a character, these four, what was in ancient forms the image of a crossroad, often something like what I draw here. Together with you see that here? Together with, at the bottom is the image of a feet, and then you have the image of a head. So in later times, the feet together with the path became something like this. Do you see that? And when it became written by the brush in stylized forms of writing of later eras, it became like this, what you see here. And then when that occurs as part of a character, it becomes like this, what you see here. Think of that as indicating feet and road, feet and movement. It is from this thing road along with the feet glyph. This thing over here. These two things, which are the same thing in written differently in two different eras. The head here becomes this thing. And this is the head. So we'll go on to the next slide. Dao. Dao, this is the concept of the Dao that you hear often. Dao De Jing. So it is the apparatus through which awareness acts, the head and the brain. The brain is n-dimensional. We are only seeing a collapsed view of it here. A dimensional collapsed view of it here. Perceiving the world vector alterations, movements. And that is phenomenon, world, and the underlying perception of it is the beyond. This particular glyph symbolizes an inch. A good mnemonic, a way to remember it would be as the distance between, say, the base of the palm and the place where the pulse is measured. In fact, the symbolic sense of it is one of restraint. The meaning of the word is a Chinese inch, a sense of measure, and so on. When it occurs as part of another character, think of it as possibly symbolizing a sense of restraint, self-restraint, that sense of restraint. Measured movement and so forth. As regard the previous slide, remember the notion of pulse also has to do with the sense of measurement, rhythm, and so on. A measured rhythm, restrained rhythm, and so on. Now, this particular glyph is for Shi, which is time, period, and so on. A phase of time in that sense, or the time, just the English sense of time. The top right box has the image of a sun, a line, and a feet stepping forth. So you have the notion of movement of the sun as time. As this symbol evolved, as this glyph evolved over time, the sun and the feet stepping forth from a line was restrained, was retained. That remained in the glyph. In addition to that, the sun symbol, the symbol that we saw in the previous slide, got added, becoming the Shi symbol. So you have the sun, a kind of brush script version of the, or you could say a kind of distorted version of the line stepping forth from the symbol ideogram. Sorry, a feet stepping forth from a line ideogram, and the sun symbol, which we saw in the previous. So that is, you could think, previous slide, you could think of it as sun, measure the movement of the sun. I'll mark it so that there's a bit of clarity. To measure the movement, that is what became this part. You have the feet, see the feet here, over here, stepping forth from a line, and the circle, a dot in the circle, think of it as the sun, because it was written on bone in this version, Oracle script version. The form became more angular. what should have been like, a circle with a dot inside. This is also often written as a circle with a line inside, indicating the origin. The primordial one beyond the appeared worlds. That sense. So you have the sun. Again here, the sun. Measured movement of the sun as time. There are noises from the neighborhood. I've set up a noise filter, a software filter, but still. So here you have the glyph for 10 and the glyph for man. So and you see the glyph for man on top and the glyph for 10, which is like a cross shape, a disc with an axis in ancient forms. So together it becomes the glyph for 1000. It is interpreted as 10 human lives, which would be 1,000 years. This is the symbol for a year, Nian. You see the symbol of a man, the symbol for 10, which is 1000, and on top is the symbol of a grain. If you look at this second box and the third box from the top, that's obvious. The idea is that 1,000 grains is a harvest. The cycles of years were indicated often in those ancient times by harvest seasons and so on. This is the symbol of a shell, like those shells you see lying around the beaches, the ones you'd find in a beach. I write a picture of a kauri. Kauris were used as currency in ancient China. Shellfish, kauri, money. This is now also a symbol used for the word money, currency. One of the ancient forms of currency were these shells, apparently. So this particular glyph has the image of a kauri that you see here and the image of a hand. A hand holding a kauri is the sense of gaining something, getting something. If you remember from the previous slide, kauri was ancient currency or money. So if you're holding money, you gained something in that sense. Here you see a symbol of a crossroad arrow. That indicates movement. So the movement of gaining something, attaining to something, and so on. In the modern form, the kauri became this portion, the hand became this portion, and the crossroads became this portion. The meanings of this particular glyph include get, reach, achieve, something that one should, and so on. Pronunciations include the, they. When you encounter this glyph in the language, you'd understand its meanings better. For now, just gain a familiarity with the form. Here, this is one of the second of the 10 heavenly stems. I'll read what I've written here. The 10 heavenly stems and the 12 terrestrial branches together form a cyclic calendrical system spanning 60 years. In the system, the symbols used to represent time periods are thought to carry the nature of the cosmic phenomenon manifesting on Earth during those periods. In the oracle bones, the date on which the oracle was consulted was written in this system. The system is still used in China. So this particular glyph, which is the second of the 10 heavenly stems, represents germination. It represents the germ that strives to get out, according to the sinologist Vega. Yo. This is said to be from the symbol of a germ and from the symbol of a hand together. So fault outstanding, germ. A germ emerging, germ as in a sprout, as if from a plant. And above it is a hand attempting to restrain its growth. A man acting against principles that make him conform is either transcending them, is outstanding, or is committing a fault. So there are two senses to this word. One is a fault, the other is the sense of outstanding. This glyph is pronounced Jing, as in Beijing. It means northern tower. You have this in its ancient form. It was, as you see here on top, the form of a tower. Here again, now it has the meaning the capital of a city, capital of a country. Sorry. Originally the glyph was a pictogram of a tower, the picture of a tower and an administrative building, Jing. Regarding the previous slide, a tower is a prominent structure in an area. Likewise, a capital is a prominent structure in a nation. And a tower were used for lookout, administrative purposes, and so on. By extension, the what a capital does in a nation. Here you have the word Jiu. You have the tower Jing and Yo. So this suggests a natural spontaneity. Yo as the growth idea, growth against a restrained idea, and Jing as a towering structure. So just simply right away, that sense is there for Jiu. On the left side you see the tower, on the right side a sprout growing against a hand that restrains it. The tower here on the left and the Yo symbol on the right, which indicates an outstanding growth and so on. So it's a spontaneous rising, a natural spontaneous emergence. Therefore simply right away, exactly, and so on. So you have here New, which is the picture of a female, a woman. The picture of a woman I write here. You can see the pictographic forms on the right. A woman in a traditional seated position is on the top right. And then the symbol turns more abstract. And finally its modern form is what you see over here. New woman. Think of this as a pictogram that evolved into a more stylized form that you see in the modern glyph. The form of Ya, which means desire, that is the form of a woman and the form of two hands. The combination is intended to convey the meanings desire, want, need, and so forth. But in a more profound symbolic sense, this has deeper senses. Earlier we discussed a symbol which had a longer line at the base and a shorter line at the top. I said it suggests upward movement. and it was pronounced shung. This is the straight opposite of it. You have a longer line at the top and a shorter line at the bottom, indicating downward movement, like a upturned pyramid or an upturned triangle at least. A sense is shared by these two symbols is what I meant, an upturned triangle and a figure in which you have a longer base and a shorter line at the bottom, a kind of tapering downward evolution. Tapering downward, while in shung it is tapering upward. You could remember it that way. And in the modern form, it became like in the case of shung. In the case of shung, it became like with a. Oh, I kind of drew it in a weird way, but yeah, I'll draw it once more. Just drawing by using the mouse pad. Yeah. In the case of shung, it was like that. The straight, it became like that, and with a vertical line added, and the short upper line shifted somewhat to the right. In the case of Shia, it became the straight opposite, upside down. Shorter line shifted somewhat to the right, and a vertical underneath, indicating a vertical movement. Whether it is rising or descending, there is a vertical movement. This symbol has the meaning using a sense of purpose so as to, in order to, those senses. In the ancient form, it is said to be the image of an upturned fetus. So an idea coming into formation so as to that sense, in order to an idea taking a substantial form, the inherent value of something becoming apparent. The character, I write the character Yi, finished already, evolved from the same ancient form of the upside down glyph of a fetus, Yi already, which has already taken form. This is a different modern character from this one, both of which seem to have evolved from the sense of an upturned fetus. An idea coming into formation. This one is easily remembered, the picture of a plant and therefore life, the emergence of life, the idea of existence, birth, and so on. The picture of a growing plant, life, existence. It's obvious from the pictograms on the right. It is a glyph that you could think of as a sprouting, as a growing plant, and thus life. So this is the glyph associated with the idea of a field. If you heard the word Dantian, in that sense of field, see you have images of a field on the right. Here again are more images of what appears like fields. A furrowed field, those furrowing marks. It could also be representative of yin and yang energies, active and passive energies, the vertical and the horizontal lines. It could also suggest the formation of mathematical spaces which involve these conjugate aspects and orthogonal projections. This particular glyph has the meaning once, like in the phrase once upon a time, once in the past, and so on. It has in early forms it had the form of a field and the form of Ba, which indicates a kind of manifolding or divisioning in life energy breath. So something that has already occurred, a divisioning or a manifolding of energies that layered evolution sense of reality. Another way to remember this is to think of it as fields. You have fields here, you have the mouth glyph below, and the bar, this symbol is also used to indicate division, also used for 8. So the produce of the fields divided and consumed, that an action that occurred in the past, just for a way of remembering this particular glyph. The bar became these two little tuft like things, and this was the mouth, and here you have the field. It got abstracted into this form finally. So just visualize on your own a way in which those ancient forms, the most ancient are on the top right, slightly less ancient, that is somewhat newer on the right middle, and like around 2000 years ago, newer than what is in the right middle box, in the lower right box. And the lower right one would be around 2000 years old. This symbol is not found on its own as a glyph on its own in present day usage, but it indicates a sense of coming together, harmony, like the form of a roof or 3 distinct lines coming together to generate a harmonious ordering. When you see this as part of other characters, think of it as conveying a sense of harmonious order, just as a well-built house would. Think of the roof of a Chinese house, of a beautiful Chinese house, conveying a sense of ordering, harmony, and so on. In an abstract sense, these are 3 lines that have been brought together in an aesthetic and beautiful ordering. This particular glyph has the sense to meet, to gather together, to understand something, and so on, to be able to understand. When ideas come together, you understand something. So the portion above is the glyph that we just saw, which indicates an ordering coming together with reason and so on. And the portion below is the glyph that I spoke of as having the sense of ordered energies evolving, layered evolution of energies. I did not mean to say ordered, a sense of layered evolution of energies evolving. The mouth has a sense of expression, energies being expressed. And then there's a mouth, there is a field of interaction. And then you have ordering. So you have an expression, interaction, and ordering coming together. So when you're understanding something, there is an expression, an interaction of ideas in your head, and then there is a coming together. When you're able to do something well, you're able to put your faculties together well. You're able to express things together well in a field. So able, can, meet, understand, come together, and the sense of a gathering, and so on. To remember the previous glyph, you could also think of it as the produce of a field brought together, say for a dinner or something. So therefore the glyph for the mouth, the glyph of a field, and the glyph of a roof are coming together. That way it would be easier to remember for a few. Here you have the symbol for self, oneself, and so on. There is this thing that in ancient China people pointed to, their nose to indicate oneself. Perhaps I've never been to China. Perhaps in Reasons of China, a particular author says they point to the nose to save oneself. It is the breath that forms the body in a more deeper sense. It is the breath from where one's life origins. So, in the words of a sinologist Vega, starting point, origin, beginning, evolution, the nose being, according to Chinese embryology, the starting point of body evolution. You have images of the nose on the right, at least they are said to be images of the nose. We won't get into deeper symbolism or symbology here. So the previous glyph Z, the picture of a nose, can indicate breath, self, and so on, a spontaneous emergence even. So this is the glyph J. Like in English, you can have do plus hyphen er, the doer. That er sense is often what is conveyed by this j sound. A substance being burnt in a vessel, fumes emerging from it are shown on top. The vapors released were thought to carry the nature of the substance being burnt. A j, having the nature a. That's another way this particular glyph acts. By extension, the sense of hyphen r, as in doer. J is the sound of burning as well. When an incense or something burns, its essence is brought out. So the sound can convey the sense of the essence of something. The previous glyph was pronounced J. The sound for cook in Chinese is Ju. It has the sound indicating the process. The sound when you find when something is put on fire, Ju. Likewise, J is a similar sound, bringing out the essence of something, as when an incense burns, is what I said as a way of remembering the form. Okay, so you have here on top the image of grass, these two tufts. This was the word for sao, which means grass or straw. Later on, this portion got added, which is, you could think of it as the sun appearing at the horizon, the sun at the horizon, breaking through the horizon. So you're seeing the sun breaking through the horizon through grass. Think of it that way. You're viewing the grass in the morning sun. So the meaning is grass or straw. On the top portion you see here the grass symbols. So here you can think of it as herbs being burnt, and thus this particular symbol J with what you saw earlier, J with grass added on top, the grass symbols added on top, indicates a process, the process of something being burnt, grass being burnt. It also has the sense to touch something, to come into contact with a process that is going on, something that one is actively partaking in, or the essence of something being perceived. Thus the notion of touch, catch fire, burn, and so on. Different sounds with this are j, ju, ja. This particular glyph, pronounced chu, is composed of the symbol of a space or a mouth and a person walking. Think of the symbol as that, as a pictogram, suggesting a person walking away from a space. And the meaning is go, leave, depart. Picture of a person leaving an enclosure, just for a way of remembering this. Symbolism can run deeper. Chu is the pronunciation. Earlier wanted to make this volume 1 a single lecture spanning around 2 to 3 hours, but as of now I've decided to stop it here. That is, break this talk into 2 volumes. This is like around halfway through of volume 1. So this whole series of talks on these Chinese glyphs would be like 4 lectures spanning 2 volumes of this book. This would be the last glyph I'll discuss in this lecture. Similar to this is j. It is like the apostrophe s in English. The sense is that it emerges from something. If you say the battery belongs to a car, the car's battery, in a sense it is because it is associated with, and in a sense emerging in terms of association from a particular car. In terms of symbolic form, it had the symbol of a line and a feet stepping forth from it. J emerged forth. The glyph also took the form of what appears like a plant growing out of soil from earth. It can also be thought of as an emergence from a hole symbolized by the line underneath. The sound j exists in the English word emerge. It is in a sense different from the, in the sense the has a property of making something apparent, while this making a contained property apparent, while j, as I just said, is a sense of emergence. Again, in usage, it maps to what is apostrophe s, indicating possession. The door's bolt, the laptop's screen, that kind of apostrophe s. Okay, that's where I end this particular talk.